W- Welcome to the Attic. Manadad here. It's the channel where we explore what's fun in Magic, mostly on Arena, but also in the case of today, in paper and in MTGO, anywhere you're playing limited with Aetherdrift, the new racing set, vehicle-based set. This is everybody's favorite section. I do a longer video where I break down the whole set. I'm trying it this year where I break it up into smaller pieces. This is everybody's favorite section. It's the section where I go out on a limb and I pick my top commons for every color, and in this case also colorless. And yeah, so you're joining me here on a live stream, but I'm going to record this just for I'm going to eventually put together a larger video of the whole thing, the whole sheboygan. I hope you'll come back and watch that whole thing. But if you just want a preview of what I'm thinking for top commons, and who knows, maybe I'll re-record it, because I haven't really been through the whole set with a fine-tooth comb like I like to, but I'm just trying to get this stuff out. So this allows me a good fail case. If I don't manage to get out the whole 3-hour video, I can at least get out bits and pieces of it, and put to video some of the stuff that I've actually done. Anyways, top commons. Let's take a look. Let's talk about what I think is a top common and why I think it's a top common. Okay, talking about top commons here. What are my picks for the best commons in draft and probably also in sealed? I've had a really good track record with this, but I'm a human and I'm just evaluating. I'm especially lower on information as I record this particular one for this set than I have been in the past. So anyways, leave your comments where I got it wrong or where I got it right. Come back in a couple weeks, mock me mercilessly for missing or thinking that something was good when it wasn't. Colorless especially is going to be tricky to evaluate. It's probably the top 3 colorless cards are probably going to be 3 of the common dual lands. Whatever the best 3 colors are in the set, that's probably going to be the actual top 3. But I'm not going out on a limb and predicting those just yet. And I think there's also some good things to talk about with these 3 cards in particular. So we'll talk about the colorless commons and we'll talk about more. I'm a little bit more confident in my picks for each color. So, Ether Jacket, this is probably a controversial pick to some of you. It's a 3-mana 2/1 flying vigilance, and we do know there is some X1 removal in the set, so you're going to really get blown out on tempo in the case of your opponent having that. On the other hand, 2/1 flying vigilance that tap sacrifices destroys another target artifact, and it is activate only as a sorcery. Opponent's going to see it coming. But this kind of does everything. I think this works really nicely in a max speed deck. You're going to have a 2/1 flyer that can get in and be dealing damage every turn to build up your speed. In a deck that needs to saddle or crew things, to mount or crew things, saddle or crew things. A deck that needs to tap creatures to mount or crew. Two is a good number for power. You're going to be able to crew a lot of vehicles, saddle a lot of creatures for 2. The fact that this is vigilance also means you can use the crew or mount ability, although I don't think mounts generally care about defense, but you can use the crew ability on defense. So you can fly in, hit for 2, have this back to crew something on defense. That seems pretty good. And then just the failure mode of being able to blow up your opponent's best vehicle, but there's a lot of artifacts in this set. So being able to 2-tap sacrifice, the sacrifice is somewhat relevant in some things. There's some graveyard recursion. You might be able to replay this. It's not going to be great mana value in terms of your mana spend, but I think it's just great value in terms of your flexibility. There's probably not a deck that can't make some use of this, at least in my evaluation. Pretty early on here in the set. I still haven't filled out all the archetypes yet. I will say that I believe the set is 62% artifacts. So that 2-tap sacrifice, destroy another target artifact, that will be blowing up 62% of all cards in the whole set. As including like instants and sorceries. There's a lot of artifacts in this set. So that's not a joke, and that's something to keep in mind. We know fixing is good for lands. Night Market because cycling is relevant in some of the archetypes, and also just because it looks like you're going to be able to go 3-color in a number of cases for different decks, I think Night Market should be good. The drawback of these kind of cards is like, okay, well, it's like, it's an Evolving Wilds essentially, but it doesn't thin your deck. But if you have a deck where fixing matters, I think you won't mind playing 1 or 2 Night Markets. The fact that it cycles, so you can just, if you've already fixed your colors and you don't need another land and you can cycle it away, 3 is a lot to cycle, but it's a common. The only drawback I see is the entering tapped. I do think this is going to be a very fast format, maybe even the fastest format that we've seen on Arena in the Arena era. Certainly maybe in the Play Booster era. If I'm right about that, that will be a drawback to Night Market, but there will be some slower decks, and those decks will probably be fine with Night Market. Will it be better than the two-color gain land tap lands that are already there at common? We'll see. Also, on the removal, the colorless removal tip, there's a Scrap Compactor. Again, just 3-tap, deal 3 damage to target creature. So 4 mana to deal 3. But for 4 mana, hitting, in terms of creatures, you're hitting 65% of creatures in the format. And then it has the other case where you can destroy a creature or vehicle for 6 mana. So 7 total mana. But by the time you probably had a turn where you had 1 free mana to drop this early. And then you can sit around. The threat of activation is pretty real. It is instant speed. I think Scrap Compactor has a chance of not only seeing play, but being good. We'll see about that. But that is my current thinking. But let's talk about commons in the colors. This is what you really want to know. Here's my picks for white. And white was really tricky. I think Ride's End is a no-brainer. The ability to remove almost anything for 2 mana is going to be pretty good. And it's Exile, which is going to be good. There's a Golgari deck that's Graveyard Recursion. The Graveyard is a factor in this format. Collision Course, that's trickier. I'm not sure because of sorcery speed. The deal damage mode also has a lot of fail cases, but it just destroys target artifacts. So the most it can fail is, as I said, artifacts being 62% of the total card file in this set. You're already going to be able to hit a lot for 2 mana. It is sorcery speed, but Collision Course, I think, is going to be something you're looking out for in white. Then the question becomes, okay, what else does white need in this set? I talked about, I think flying is going to be relevant for max speed. I like that Lotsagard Disciple, it can also 2 power for crewing is going to be nice. It is 3 mana, but the fact that it comes down and gives a creature or vehicle lifelink or indestructible is going to be pretty awesome. The lifelink, we know one-shot lifelink effects are always good, if not great, in a set. And so my prediction is that Lotus Guard, did I say Lotsagard? Lotus Guard Disciple will be a common that you're going to want. Hopefully, if it's a fast set, you're going to want to get down a creature or vehicle early, drop the Lotus Guard Disciple. You've got a guaranteed get in and get some life, and then you got a 2/2 left around. I think it's going to be decent, but there's a lot of the 3 slot for top common at white, I think, is going to be pretty thick. There's a lot of stuff that is about the same power level. I could be off on Lotus Guard Disciple. I'm not. My confidence on that one is less. On the other hand, blue. I'm very confident Bounce Off is going to be great. Being able to bounce a creature and then also a vehicle, so it's just strictly better unsummon. And you can bounce your own thing. You can bounce something that they're targeting with a combat trick. You can bounce a blocker in a double block. Bounce Off is going to be great. It's if the set is as fast as I think, it's going to get you tempo. That's going to be great. So I love Bounce Off. Nimble Thopterist, less confident here. This is probably the number 3 for me. Although this could be a number 1 blue common. It really has the chance because anytime you get 2 rectangles and you're getting a 3/2 here, which is a nice crew ability. It's a decent blocker on the ground, and you're getting the 1/1 Thopter in the air, which can be good for max speed things. It's also an artifact creature token. Nimblethopterist, 2 rectangles, 4 mana. That is generally good. Will it be good in this set? Is it just too expensive? Is the set going to be so fast that 4 mana is just real expensive? We'll have to see, but I think Nimblethopterist has a good shot at being a top blue common. And then Trip Up. This effect is usually kind of middling, but the fact that you can cycle it here, and cycling is relevant in blue. There's a lot of things that care about you discarding and drawing. I like that. It's instant speed. It's about as good as it gets. The only thing that would make it better is if it was 3 mana, and they don't seem to ever want to price this at 3 mana. So I guess this is strong enough. I think this is just going to help you on tempo. If the blue decks are fast at all, this is going to be a great tempo thing. And you can also use it in control. I just think Trip Up has a good shot at being a top blue common. Being as it is one of the top blue removal pieces, and you can go back and watch my removal video or go back and watch the removal portion of this video, depending on which version you're watching here. We've got Engine Rat here in black, and I think 1-drops are going to be relevant in this format. This is a 1/1 Death Touch, so it's not only is it relevant in the early game, it's relevant in the late game as Death Touch, and then actually extra relevant because for 6 mana you can deal 2. You can drain your opponent. Well, not drain necessarily, but you can make your opponent lose 2. That also is relevant for max speed. So if you can't attack, if you don't have an attack to get in, and I mean, most of the time people will not block a 1/1 Death Touch. They would rather not trade whatever they have for the 1/1 Death Touch. But let's say you're not attacking with it, and you do have 6 mana. It's the late game, and you need to build up that speed. You've got the Engine Rat, or you just need to deal the last like 4-6 damage, whatever. Engine Rat. Engine Rat is just going to do it all in all phases of the game. It's in terms of drawing a 1-drop off the top deck, this is about as good as you could want. And there are things even that even care about zombies. It's even got some relevance with some rares. So I'm loving Engine Rat. Maybe going out on a limb picking that as a top common, but we'll see. We'll see if I'm borne out in my prediction on that. Grim Bauble, on the other hand, I don't think is going out as far. It's a 1 mana, going to give something -2/-2 until end of turn, and then it's going to stay around. You can either sacrifice it. There are black cards that want you to sacrifice artifacts, or it has a sacrifice ability where you get to surveil. There are lots of black cards that care about you having cards in graveyard, so just being able to put 2 cards in the graveyard for 3 mana. Grim Bauble is, again, just going to do it all in black. I don't think you're ever going to really be mad about drawing the Grim Bauble unless your opponent has all really high toughness creatures, and then it's not going to do a lot, but it can try to surveil you to something that can do something. So it's still not completely irrelevant. Liking Grim Bauble. Then the third pick for black was really tough. I went back and forth. There is the instant speed murder effect. That instant speed destroys a creature or vehicle. On the other hand, is that going to be that good in a form? I have a feeling that, well, we'll see. I think removal is going to be very good because this format's just going to be about aggro, just getting stuff down, dealing damage, racing, winning as fast as you can. My evaluation here, and it is still a little bit early days as I record this portion of the video, but my evaluation is this is going to be a fast set. If that's the case, having a nice combat trick to tangle where you win the combat, you remove the opponent, you're leaving behind extra power with maximum overdrive, I think has a good shot at being a very relevant common. It also has a good shot at not being a very relevant common. It's a high risk pick for me, but I went with maximum overdrive. There's a possibility you just want a good 2-drop that gets in or smacks in, but I do like, there's a 1/3 flyer in black. I think that might be uncommon though. But anyways, let's go on to red. Again, 1-drops. I'm picking 1-drops as being relevant. This is Dynamite Diver. It's a 1/1. Whenever it dies, it's going to be able to deal the damage. So that's going to be a way to guarantee you get your speed increase. You can just attack in with it. Either they block it, it dies, and you deal the damage to your opponent's face and get your speed increase for a turn, or you or it gets in and you get the speed increase and it survives. It also can crew and mount as if its power were 2 greater. So again, relevant in the late game. You can drop this, and as long as you have a mount or vehicle that you want to be able to crew up. 3 is a lot, but this can do it for 3. So like Dynamite Driver, I think it's super flexible. I think getting a creature down on turn 1 is going to be really good and relevant. And your opponent's not necessarily going to want to remove a 1-drop. There's going to be very few ways for them to trade favorably with it, especially since it dies into a damage. Lightning Strike, this is Windmill Slam. This is a good shot of being best common in the whole set. 2 mana instant speed, 3 damage to any target, and that includes going to your opponent's face. And 65% of creatures, not talking about vehicles, but just creatures in the set, die to this. So you're going to be able to remove stuff way up the tempo ladder with Lightning Strike. Also, Crash and Burn, I talked about this in the removal section. It is 4 mana. Usually these kind of effects in red are 5 mana and a sorcery. So this is already good because it's 4 mana and an instant. Unrestricted, destroy target vehicle. So if your opponent has a big threatening vehicle, you can get that for 4 mana. And then otherwise, if it's not a vehicle, if it's just a creature or a planeswalker, 6 damage is going to take out pretty much anything. It's about 97% of the creatures in the set. There's just a few that are bigger than that. But green's big 6/6 gets taken out by this, and that's pretty good to know. But yes, there is an uncommon blue 08 creature that does not die to Crash and Burn in the legendary vanilla cycle. And then finally, green. What are my picks for green? Well, Beast Rider Vanguard, I just like. The moment I read this card, I just added it to this slide. This is a 2/2 for 2, and we know we're going to want to be able to crew things for 2. And then 5 mana, look at the top 3 cards of your library. You may reveal a permanent card. So do you need a land? Do you need a creature? Do you need a vehicle? What, like 5 mana? We know these cards are good. Just your opponent is going to have to remove this at some point, or you're just going to sit around and accrue value because any turn where you don't have something to play, you're grabbing the best from your top 3 cards of your library and putting it into your hand. Now, Broken Wings. I talked about this a bit in the removal and combat tricks section. I'm picking this as a main deckable card. It hits in terms of permanents. I don't remember what, you can go back and look at the slide, but it hits a huge amount of non-land permanents in this format. I think that for 3 mana at a common at instant speed, Broken Wings is going to be a good card and even has a chance of being a top common. Run Over almost certainly will be a top common. This is your instant speed punch spell. This is green's kind of premier removal unless Broken Wings ends up being even better. But the ability to have a vehicle that's not even crewed deal damage equal to its power, and we know there are a lot of vehicles with big amounts of power, just makes this that much better than it already, like this effect is already usually a top common in green in any set that it's in, but it's going to cost less for having a vehicle. It's going to deal more damage when you've got mounts or vehicles, or I guess just because you've got vehicles in the set. It's going to be less often blanked because you've got vehicles in the set. I'm liking Run Over for a top common in green. Now, what is left in the video is, in the larger video, if you're continuing on, is to talk about cards that you definitely should not draft and cards that you definitely should.